Today in my random gaming thoughts, I want to talk about what is probably my favorite gaming series, and that is Pokemon. To give a brief history of my fandom with Pokemon, I basically didn't get to play it as a kid. And it's not because of religious beliefs or Pokemon are the devil or anything like that. It was legitimately because we could not really afford those games. I had a Nintendo DS, but before I could get a Pokemon game on my Nintendo DS, my Nintendo DS broke. So we couldn't afford a new Nintendo DS, obviously. So I was just never able to play Pokemon as a child. And I believe sometimes, when I think about it really hard, that I probably wouldn't be as big of a fan of Pokemon if I got to play it as a kid. But then again, this gaming media franchise has took over my every waking moment. From when I was in middle school, I was watching streamers do Nuzlocke live. I was watching competitive Pokemon battlers. I was watching a lot of Showdown Lives with Shofu and other YouTubers like that. I was watching a lot of Let's Plays of Pokemon ROM hacks and of different Pokemon side games. I was enveloped in the community. I was not a big poster. I was 14 and I was scared to talk to people. But I had my own little niche of people that I watched, of content that I enjoyed. Now, when I got my tablet, when I was 12 or 13, then I was able to download Pokemon ROMs and play Fire Red and Leaf Green and play Black and White 2 for the first time through my tablet. What's crazy is that my first physical Pokemon game that I ever owned is Pokemon Ultra Moon on the 3DS. It was that much of a gap between I wanted X and Y so bad. I wanted Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire so bad. I was in the community when these games were hot, when there was the Wonder Trade stuff going on, when there was all the Nuzlocke. It was so fun up to a point because I did not have a 3DS to also enjoy the fun. But that's enough about me and my backstory. Today, I want to talk about maybe not my experience playing these games. Let me just explain this a little bit. Each of the Pokemon games, especially the ones in the early gens, have one or two specific big issues with the game on a fundamental level that will possibly keep people from playing these games. And as someone who has played almost all of the mainline Pokemon games, I wanted to talk about how those, we'll call them quirks, how they affected my gameplay, and if it kept me from wanting to play those Pokemon games. And when I ended up playing those Pokemon games, how did I actually feel about that quirk? If you like the idea of this and want to hear me talk for about, 15 to 20 minutes about this topic, consider liking, consider subscribing. It would really help me out a lot. I hope that didn't sound disingenuous. It was I guess the best place to start would be Generation 1, although not really, because spoiler alerts, this is not one of the games I played. And to be clear, I'm talking about the original Red, Blue, and Yellow. I'm not talking about Fire Red and Leaf Green. They don't share the fundamental quirk that Generation 1 Red, Blue, and Yellow have. I have not played Red, Blue, and Yellow, partly because I forgot to buy it on the 3DS shop before it shut down, but also because the main thing that people talk about Generation 1 for is its variety of glitches and bugs. I mean, everybody knows Missing No, everybody knows the Mew clone glitch, but there's also like the glitches of moves in the game. There's the 1 in 256 chance for a move to miss, even if it's a 100% accurate move. What a crazy glitch that is. There's bugs. Now, one bug that I actually really like the idea of is Hyper Beam. If it KOs an opponent, you don't have to recharge when the next opponent comes in. I just think that's kind of neat. But all of the other glitches, along with the graphical style, but I think that's more of a me thing rather than it being the big enveloping issue with Generation 1. But that one's not a very long thing to talk about because, again, I've not played the game. I don't have any thoughts on how the glitches affect my gameplay because there is no gameplay of me playing this game. Moving on to Gold and Silver, I played a little bit of this. I did not finish it because Gold and Silver has probably the biggest problem out of any Pokemon game in the entire series. And it's a reason that people really, really don't like Johto. And I've been trying to defend Johto for years. But after trying to play the original Gold, Silver, Crystal, it is so difficult to want to do any kind of grinding in this game. Because the levels of not just the wild Pokemon. If it was just the wild Pokemon that had low levels, it would be fine because at least, oh, hey, I get to go fight some trainers who maybe have a few levels, you know, that are closer to mine instead of it being just so lopsided. But anyway, the trainers are like that too. Every Pokemon in this game is so underleveled that it makes grinding to even get your Pokemon close to a gym leader's levels, it makes it so difficult and so annoying. But some may say, oh, you could just play the game without grinding. No, I don't know how others feel about it, but I like grinding just a little bit. I like there being like a little bit of a chore. It's like I have to do this to get better. To me, it's like, oh, it's the training aspect of Pokemon that I really like. But even I have my limits. I can't do this for multiple hours. I got shit to do, you know? And so while I really like the art style of Gen 2, I think it's really interesting conceptually. The levels are just so not good to work with that it's like, oh, why would I want to sink hours playing this game, knowing that I'm not going to have a good time playing it? Another minor issue, I wouldn't even say it's a minor issue, but it's one that doesn't affect me as much, and it's just with how kind of boring Johto is, honestly, because they put a whole other region in this game as well with Kanto. So obviously it's like, okay, we can't do too awful much. It's like, it's more of an expansion of Kanto rather than its own thing. And Johto does have like really good cultural value. Each of their cities feels culturally different, but they kind of had to, because if they didn't, and it was more just like the basic stuff that Kanto had, the interactions with the NPCs aren't really helping. The events that happen in the game aren't really helping that much. You would have nothing. Generation 3 is a tricky one. I've not played Ruby or Sapphire, but I have played Emerald. And to me, Emerald is a 10 out of 10 game. I'm not even going to hold you for 1 second. I think Emerald is a perfect Pokemon game. So I kind of didn't have any ideas of the quirks of Generation 3. There's like some things that the community kind of talks about. The thing that I'm thinking of is in Oraz, the too much water thing, which I really don't care to count that, because that's the point of the region. It's an island. Like, I mean, it's all fucking islands, but like this is like very clearly meant to be completely different than Gen 1 and Gen 2. So how much more different can you get than a game that takes a lot of place in water? If anything, I think that that's a really cool change of pace. And this is probably me dick riding Generation 3, but it deserves it. So I guess the only thing that I could possibly think of that's like a little bit weaker about Generation 3 is the rival battles. I guess there's not too many of those in the game. I'm sorry, I'm kind of clutching at straws with this one. I really think that no matter what quirks or flaws are in Generation 3, I think the good of the game so much outweighs the bad of the game that I literally cannot think of a single thing that I really dislike or disliked playing Generation 3. Now, I will say that Generation 4 is a lot easier, I think, and this is really going to be a hot take. I've not played Platinum, so maybe Platinum will change my worldview, and it'll be like, wow, this is exactly what I needed. Oh my god, Diamond and Pearl are so slow. I think they're the worst. I think Diamond and Pearl are about the worst games in the series. And it's really not due to the story, because I think you could probably stack up the Team Galactic stuff. It's probably up there in terms of the story. I think the characters are pretty decent, but everything moves at such a snail's pace. Why the hell do I want to play this game if it takes so long to do anything? God forbid you are facing an opponent with a lot of HP and you hit, like, I think people have seen videos of a fighting type move used on a Blissey, and it takes just so long for the bar to reach 0. And it's like, that could have been an email. This could have been a lot faster. Why are you doing this? So I finished playing Generation 4. I played Pearl, that's the one I own, but I would never come back to this game again. I would want to play Platinum, because from all things I heard, it's actually at a normal speed. I don't know, I guess they decided to like turn the playback to normal instead of at 0.5. But until I play Platinum, I could never see myself going back to those games, because to me it does not matter how good everything else is. When the game is as slow as Diamond and Pearl are, it just makes everything so agonizing to sit through. And maybe it's a bit of an exaggeration. For me, it's not. I think when we talk about Generation 5, the only thing that people really rag on the game for at this point in time is for the Pokemon introduced in this generation. And I think that's probably the biggest knock against it, because it is not quite literally, but it is almost basically Generation 1, but new. And some of the designs, I don't hate any Pokemon designs. Okay, well, that's not true. I'm sorry, just a mini rant here. This is going to be really quick. G-Max Caporaja, ugliest fucking design on Earth. Anyway, people would say that the designs in Generation 5 are uninspired, and I tend to disagree. I think they are inspired. They're inspired by Gen 1. I don't think that makes them bad. I think, would you say that Roggenrola is a better or worse design than Geodude? I'd say it's worse, but I think Gigalith is much better than Golem, so what does my opinion really matter? I like most Pokemon designs anyway, even if they are a little bit stupid. I think Pokemon needs a couple of stupid picks every now and then. I think it makes the game a little bit more fun to go through. It's like, oh, here's a fucking Stunfisk. This thing looks strange. That's pretty cool, though. I think it's just fun to have a little character, a little whimsy. just some little guys in the game. So I will say that Black and White 1 did not bother me at all. In fact, I kind of like playing with only the new Pokemon. I think looking back on my later gen playthroughs, and I try to fit in as many new Pokemon on the team as I can, but at a certain point, you keep picking your favorites. Your favorites are your favorites for a reason. Gallade is my favorite Pokemon. So, yeah, in Sword and Shield, I'm going to pick it up. And in Scarlet and Violet, I'm going to pick it up. And in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, if I can, I'm going to pick it up. Like, in Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, I'm picking it up. So I really do like Gen 5 just being like, you don't have a choice. You cannot get any old Pokemon until post-game. You have to play with our new set of Pokemon. And I think that's cool. I think some people don't like the new Pokemon, and so that's why it keeps them from playing Generation 5. I really like it. I'm really glad that that is a feature. Moving on to Generation 6, I think people's biggest gripe with that game is kind of just, well, I think Generation 6 has two big ones. One of them is the move to 3D, which some people saw as really good. A lot of people saw as really bad. I'm kind of in the middle on it. I like how some Pokemon look in 3D, but I can also admit that they really did just mess up some design elements for a good amount of Pokemon. I mean, literally, I know everybody else has mentioned it, but look at all of the flying Pokemon. They should not always be flying. I think that's kind of dumb. But I think the bigger issue that people find in Pokemon X and Y is that there just doesn't seem to be that much going on. Everything seems very bare bones. It seems like they spent a lot more time working on the aesthetic of the game rather than making an engaging Pokemon game. And this is not to say that Pokemon X and Y are bad. I like Pokemon X and Y. They're not my favorite in the series because I do think it's kind of, and obviously Pokemon can be very linear. This is super duper extreme linear. You know, the Elite Four, each of the Elite Four only has 4 members on their team. Like, that kind of stuff is just like, come on, man. You couldn't do a little bit more with that. As a side note, I think another big thing that people don't like Gen 6. Another big thing that people have gripes about in Gen 6, I would say another quirk, even though I don't mind it at all, is the experience share. I don't mind it in here because you can turn it off if you want to. If you don't want to play with the experience share on, then turn it off. You don't get that choice with the later games, but at least in Generation 6, they give you the option to make the game a little bit more grindy, which I can appreciate. So Generation 7, like I said earlier, was the first time that I physically owned a Pokemon game. And I did not play the original Sun and Moon. I played Ultra Moon as my first Generation 7 game. I can't lie to you. I think that's a near perfect game, just like Emerald is. I mean, Emerald's perfect, but I think Ultra Moon and Ultra Sun are like damn near perfect. And so just imagine my surprise when I figure out that people really dislike this game because of its focus on story and all of the dialogue in the game, which I think I would get a little bit more if the game around it was dull. But Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon it's about the most fun I've ever had in a Pokemon game. There wasn't too much grinding. I thought all of the new Pokemon were really cool. I thought the idea of the Island Challenge, I thought was a really interesting diversion from the gyms. I thought it was really interesting to do that. I thought SOS encounters were cool. I literally would shiny hunt SOS chain for days on end because that was the most fun shiny hunting method for me. But I guess if you really don't care about the story of Pokemon games, which that I mean, honestly, that's a good amount of people. I get it. Then I understand why you wouldn't like this game, because you're just like, let me get to the Pokemon battles. Let me get to the meat and potatoes of the game. I liked the story. I liked learning about each of the characters. And so I really enjoy the dialogue. I liked the explanation of everything. I think that was really fun. And then along with that, there's also all the side events that you can do post-game or during the game as well, which I just think are so cute. I mean, the Pikachu wedding I think was really cute. Just one that stands out in my mind right there. I think this is a really good game. And I think that the dialogue is part of why the game is good. Now with Generation 8, Sword and Shield, look, I think that they're okay. They're definitely closer to the bottom in terms of my rankings, if I'm not including the DLC, because I think the Crown Tundra made the game a lot better than it had any business being. But the biggest quirks of Generation 8, because there were two big ones. One of them was Dexit, which at the time, and even still now, I'm like, okay, I feel like they could really do this. But back then, I was furious. I was like, I collected all of these damn Pokemon just for me not to be able to use all of them? What kind of sense does that make? I thought we were catching them all. I will say that in place of getting all of the Pokemon, they did end up putting more detail in the Pokemon that they kept, which I think that they could have done anyway, but I think it's just a nitpicky point at this time anyway. I think the other big issue is the graphical capabilities of this game. Everybody has seen the image of the tree. I don't want to explain the tree. I don't think that made a difference to me when I was playing the game. I know I didn't care too much for it because I kind of liked everything else about the art direction of the game. I kind of wish that the Pokemon had more textures like they do in Gen 9, but I still think the Gen 8 designs do look good. I don't think they look bad at all, so. But yeah, I don't have a lot to say about Generation 8. It's kind of... the rest of it is mid. The rest of it is pretty middling in terms of Pokemon game. I was gonna also talk about Legends Arceus, but just like Emerald, I think that's a perfect Pokemon game, so I really don't have anything to even try to add to that conversation. So I'm not even going to talk about Arceus at all. But the last generation that I want to talk about is Generation 9. God, I don't know what it is with these Switch titles, but the graphical capabilities was also the biggest quirk of Generation 9. I think in terms of exploration, I think in terms of character work, I think Generation 9 has some of the best writing in the series. But it becomes a problem when your game will just constantly freeze and constantly stutter at any point in time. And there's not really a lot that you can do about it. Obviously, whenever the Switch 2 update came out, it's like, okay, you can upgrade the game, but not everybody is going to pay $500 to upgrade a Pokemon game. So I'm just thinking in terms of how it runs right now on Switch 1, which is not good at all. Now, did it affect my gameplay? No, because I was just so enamored by everything else. I thought all of the Pokemon were really cool. I thought it was really cool that it was open world. Technically, you could go wherever you wanted, even though you really couldn't, which I thought was a bit of a bummer. You could also say that the glitches and bugs were an issue with this game, but I love doing a backwards long jump into an area that I'm really not supposed to be able to reach, so I can't really complain about that either. Generation 9 is just such a polarizing game for a lot, but my opinion on it is very clear, and it's that, dude, this game, despite all of its shortcomings, it's still a damn fun Pokemon game, and I couldn't put it down at all while I was playing it. Just to put a nice little bow on everything, really the only Pokemon games that I could do without in terms of their quirks is Generation 1, Generation 2, Generation 4, and Generation 8. Now, considering that is almost half of the Pokemon mainline games, may not sound the best, but keep in mind that I have played most of these games, and while I will talk shit about them from time to time, I have such a heavy bias for Pokemon that I will still end up defending games like this. Even though I don't personally like it, it does not mean that these are not really popular games. They're popular for good reasons. Pokemon is just such an endearing franchise. No matter what Game Freak puts in or takes out of the game, it's still going to be really popular. And people are going to play it because it has Pokemon in it at the end of the day. But I hope that all made sense. I hope you enjoyed me rambling about this. And I hope that if you did enjoy me rambling about this, that you can consider leaving a like and subscribing. Leaving a comment as well. Let me know what you think about this. With all that being said, I will see you later, and I hope you have yourself a good one.